Okay, welcome to Chapter 1. We're in the first section and second section today. It's all about expressions and properties. These are our learning goals. We're going to focus more on the simple part of expressions, and then we will put them into context when we get into class. So let's get started. Now, throughout this course, we're going to have to learn the language of mathematics so that we can communicate mathematically. In this section, we have some words that we do need to know. For example, variable. You're very familiar with this word, or should be from Algebra 1, but what it means is it's an unknown quantity. A variable is actually a number, but we don't know which number it is, so we give it a nickname. So that nickname comes in the form of any letter that you can think of. It can be a variable that represents an unknown quantity. An algebraic expression is a mathematical statement that has at least one variable in it. For example, x by itself can be an algebraic expression. If you multiply it by a number like 2x, that's an expression. There are all kinds of expressions that you can create with all of the operations. It can be very simple or very complicated. Here's another thing that you should be pretty familiar with, order of operations. Now, many of you are used to talking or thinking about order of operations using this acronym, PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Well, it can be a little bit misleading, so let me kind of go through it real quick. The first step, P, stands for parentheses. Now, the reason why that's a little confusing is that it leaves out other grouping symbols, and there's a secret grouping symbol that I will tell you about here in this lesson. So more than just parentheses, we talk about all grouping symbols. We have to simplify inside them first. Then we evaluate all powers, so that's what the E stands for, exponents. And then step 3 is multiply and divide from left to right. So multiply, the M and the D are in the same step, and you do whatever is on the left first. So if division is on the left first, then you do that first. And if there's a multiplication, you do that first, okay? And add and subtract are also in the same step. You do that left to right. Here's a good example of that. We have evaluate expression if M is 12 and Q is -1. So our first step, here's our algebraic expression with the variables in it, but we do actually know what these variables are. They are 12 and -1. So we're going to substitute in those values. Now we can go ahead and evaluate it by using our order of operations. So our first step is grouping symbols. Here's a grouping symbol right here, those parentheses. So we need to simplify inside, and we do that by doing 3 minus -1. Now, minus and negative is the same thing as adding. So we end up with 12 plus 4 squared. Our second step is exponents, so 4 squared becomes 16. And then the third step is multiplication and division. Since we have none of that, we go ahead and we add and get 28. You go ahead and pause the video and try this problem out, and then I'll show you the solution for that. Okay, did you guess number 2? or -2, excuse me, then you are correct. If not, you can go ahead and check your work against my work. First, you substitute in the values, 12 for M and -1 for Q. And there are no, inside the grouping symbols, -1 is as simple as it can be. So we move to the next step. Let's see, exponents. There are no exponents, so we skip that. And then we do our multiplication and division left to right. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then we do our multiplication. 6 times -1 is -6. And then we do our addition. Okay, so remember I said there was a secret grouping symbol? Well, that secret grouping symbol is called the fraction bar. Okay, so whenever you see a fraction bar with expressions either in the numerator or in the denominator, you have to think of that fraction bar as creating grouping symbols around each one of those. So what that means is we have to use our order of operation in each set of parentheses before we do the division from the fraction bar. So let's get started on that example. First, we substitute in all of the values, 4 for W, -3 for X, and -5 for Y. Then, since all of the parentheses inside are already simplified, we skip to exponents. So -3 to the 4th power is +81, and -5 to the 3rd power is -25. Let me mention that if you have something to a positive power, you must put that negative number in parentheses before you raise it to the 4th power. We will get to that in another section as well. We'll review that. So anyway, -3 to the 4th power is 81, -5 to the 3rd power is -125. Then we do our multiplication and division left to right. So here in the numerator we have these 3 things multiplied together. This is a -3 times 4 is -12. Then -12 times -5 is +60. So that's where that 60 comes from. And we do our 2 times 4 is 8. Now we get to go ahead and take care of the addition in the numerator and denominator. So the numerator becomes 141 and the denominator becomes -117. And then we ask ourselves, can this be reduced? And it certainly can. I know that both of these numbers are divisible by 3 because when I add up all the digits, 4 + 1 + 1, that gives me 6. 6 is divisible by 3, so this number is divisible by 3. That's just a really a shortcut. Also, 7 + 1 + 1, 9 is divisible by 3, so I know 3 goes into both of those. So I divide 3 out of them, and I get -47 over 39. So, and that's in reduced form. Okay, here's an example from physics. This is actually it's talking about this formula gives the height in h feet and of an object t seconds after it is shot upward from the Earth's surface, and with an initial velocity of 120 feet per second. What will the height of the object be after 6 seconds? So we need to figure out what are they asking us to do with this formula. Well, they are asking us what will the height be. So that's the thing we don't know. And the thing we do know is 6 seconds. So first, remember from the problem, it tells us that h stands for height and t stands for seconds. So we remind ourselves by writing that down. Then we can substitute in what we know. So we can substitute in 6 for t because it's 6 seconds. So we're going to go ahead and put in the seconds there and use our order of operations to simplify. So we're going to take care of the exponent. 6 squared is 36. Then we multiply left to right. So we get 720 minus 576. And so our answer is 144. Now, every time that you have a problem that's given to you in words, you're going to go ahead and answer with words as well. So once you get your answer, I want you to rephrase it in a complete sentence. The height of the object is 144 feet after 6 seconds. So that was it for section 1. Section 2, we're going to talk about the properties of real numbers and evaluate expressions by justifying steps. So this right here is what we're going to concentrate on right now. So let's get started on that. Now, all of these real number properties are found in your book on page 12, so you can look that up if you'd like to see it again. So you don't necessarily have to write down this whole chart, but you may if you want to. So commutative property, you may remember, means that for addition, it doesn't matter which way you add or multiply things, it always gives you the same answer. For example, 3 times 2 is 6 and 2 times 3 is 6. So the order can be switched, and this is only for addition and multiplication. It won't work for subtraction and division. Also for addition and multiplication, we have associative property, and you can see that the grouping is switched on each side of the equal sign. So they're basically saying that you're allowed to add A and B first, or you can add B and C first, then A. So it doesn't matter what order you add things, it will work out to be the same. The identity property of addition is that whenever you add 0 to something, you get back that number. We also have an identity for multiplication. That would be any number times 1 gives you back that number. So adding by 0 or multiplying by 1 does not change the original value. The additive inverse means when you add opposite numbers like 3 plus -3, it will always give you 0. So notice that the inverses, when you add them, gives you the identity. For multiplication, when you multiply by the reciprocal, you're always going to get 1. So for example, 3 times 1 over 3 equals 1. So multiplying by the reciprocal will always give you 1, which happens to be the multiplicative identity. Finally, we have distributive property. That means if you have a number or a variable multiplied to a set of parentheses, you need to multiply that number or variable to everything inside the parentheses. Okay, so to justify your steps, you need to write down a property or explain what you did in that step. So here we have an expression, an algebraic expression, and our first step would be to use the distributive property. So 4 times 3a gives us 12a, 4 times -b is -4, 2 times b is 2b, 2 times 3a is 6a. Then we use the commutative property to get this a over next to the 12. So when you're adding, you can move things around. Make sure that if you have a negative number, it goes with that negative number. So that 4 is still negative. Then we combine our like terms. 12a plus 6a gives us 18a. -4b plus 2b gives us -2b. And that's our first video, so I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you tomorrow.